Put your hands together, keep it going. You know her. She's told stories on this stage. JeDonna Dingus.
In January of 2021, my daughter India and I were targets of a white supremacist neighbor who put a full container of gasoline in our recycle bin, which was in our backyard up against our house in Grosse Pointe Park. The gasoline was put there to intimidate and terrorize us, and to also send a message that he could kill us. We called the police, but they didn't do much. They did recommend that we buy a security camera, and so we did. Our neighbor's response to our security camera was a KKK flag placed in his dining room window facing our home. I took a picture of the flag and I put it up on social media, and it immediately went viral. Within days, I was no longer being called the clothes whisperer, as many of my clients at the boutique that I own, Margot and Max, call me. I was being called the Klan flag lady. Everywhere I went for 60 days straight, I was recognized in the grocery store. Even driving down the street, a carload of fine young brothers yelled out, "It's you, the Klan flag lady." I said, I suppose I am the Klan flag lady. The Grosse Pointe Park police didn't bother to even take a report. They thought they were going to sweep it under the rug until Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence called and got in their asses. And Senator Gary Peters talked about our case on the floor of the U.S. Senate. The case was sent to Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy's office, but unfortunately, our neighbor wasn't charged because of the way the Michigan's ethnic intimidation law is written. I wasn't satisfied with that, so I picked up the phone and I called our state senator, former state senator Adam Hoyer, and our state representative, Joe Tate. Neither of them believed that anything could be done because the state legislature was controlled by Republicans. I wasn't okay with that. I was really pissed off, to be honest with you. I said, something has to be done. This bastard came after me and my daughter, and nothing's gonna happen to him. I wasn't okay with that. I decided to do something about it because my mama and Detroit didn't raise no punks. So I called up my homegirl, Bridget Maxey. Like me, she ain't a punk either. She's from right over on Livernois and 7 Mile. So I called Bridget up and I said, girl, we gotta figure out how to change this law. Now, Bridget worked in Lansing for many years. So I said, what do we have to do? She said, we have to have a lobbyist and a public policy expert and a First Amendment expert and the support of the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office and the support of the Governor's Office and the support of the Attorney General's Office. That's a lot of support. I said, I don't know anything about any of that or any of those people. I just sell clothes. And I said, do you know any of those people? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, if you call them, will they answer? She said, I think so. And I said, okay, hold on. Let me grab my spiral notebook. Now, anybody who knows me well knows I don't plan anything or do anything without my spiral notebook. So Bridget and I sat on the phone for about 2 hours talking about how we were going to change this law. The first call that we made was to Cynthia Douglas. Cynthia Douglas is a former president of the Grosse Pointe and Harper Woods NAACP. We asked Cynthia to be our partner in helping us change this legislation, and Cynthia jumped in with both feet. And the Ethnic Intimidation Law Amendment Work Group was born. That was in March of 2021. We immediately thought we need to invite some people to the table. So we invited about 30 of the movers and shakers in Michigan to the table. We invited Governor Whitmer's office, Big Gretch as we call her, the Attorney General, Dana Nessel's office, Alicia Bell, the chair of the Wayne County Commission, among others, and the late, great lobbyist Ken Cole. Everyone that we invited said yes, and to my surprise, on April 1st, 2021, we had our first meeting via Zoom. I was in tears. I was so moved by all of these people showing up to help us. Important people, people with influence, with money, and power. And they all showed up pro bono, those who, attorneys and lobbyists who get paid to do that work. And I was glad they showed up pro bono, because don't let the cute outfit fool you, your girl don't have money like that. So we had our first meeting, and I was super excited, but also very naive in how it was going to go to change this law. So for 2 years, we worked on this legislation, meeting every week. And our attorney, Ron Lipscomb, developed the language for this legislation, and we were so excited. He did tons of research on other hate crimes legislation, on stalking legislation, and so forth. And we thought we were ready to go. And then the unthinkable happened. Our lobbyist, Ken Cole, died. Bridget and I were devastated. Ken Cole was a giant amongst men. The kind of person who made you feel like you had known him your whole life. Ken was the kind of person who could tell you to go to hell. And not only would you look forward to the trip, you would pack 2 suitcases, not 1, but 2 suitcases full of your best clothes. So Bridget and I did not know what to do. And we really just took to the bed and mourned the loss of Ken. We had lost this gentle giant. And then in November of 2023, Bridget called me. She said, "Girl, are you watching the news?" I said, "No, what's going on?" She said, "The House and the Senate in Michigan have flipped blue." And I was like, "What?" She said, "Girl, we gotta get back to it." Okay, let's do it. So we started talking about how we were going to get the legislation passed again. We had been dormant for a little bit, and we called up Portia Roberson from Focus Hope and asked Portia and Focus Hope to be our community partner. And Portia jumped in with both feet. So we started going again. We also had to think of finding a new lobbyist. So we reached out to this young brother who's amazing, Rudy Hobbs. He agreed to be our lobbyist to help us with this legislation. In the meantime, the Attorney General, Dana Nessel, had identified a 20-something lawmaker named Noah Arbit from West Bloomfield to sponsor our legislation. Representative Arbit, unfortunately, began to talk about this legislation, this hate crimes legislation, as only representing or only protecting the LGBTQIA+ community. Every time he opened his mouth, he would say, "I'm as a proud gay man." Now let's be clear, I don't have a problem with him being proud, as a proud gay Jewish man. I don't have a problem with him being Jewish or gay. I did have a problem with him erasing the voices of Black women who were doing this work. I was not targeted because I'm a member of the LGBTQI+ community. My daughter India, who is a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, was not targeted because of that either. We were targeted because we were Black. And I thought that that was a very important part of the conversation. Because Representative Arbit kept painting this narrative, the GOP latched on. And they began to talk about this legislation being created to punish those who might refer to members of the LGBTQIA+ community by the wrong pronouns. And it took off. So every story we saw in the media was about this lie that they had spun. And it became very negative. And people started to back away, even Democrats. And I became very discouraged. At one point, I called Bridget up, and I just said, fuck it, Bridget. He can put the flag back up. I was so discouraged. And then I remembered who I was and where I came from. Bridget and I often say we are two daughters of Coleman Young. I grew up with parents who encouraged us to understand that we were change makers. My mother often said, don't call Coleman Young about the trash in front of your house, grab your broom. And so I understood that if I wanted this law changed, I had to do it. So the legislation had passed the House, it got stalled in the Senate. And I called Rudy, our lobbyist, and I said, Rudy, what will we need to do to get this legislation going again? He said, well, we need to call Senate leadership. And I said, okay, can you set up a Zoom meeting? He said, sure. He called and set up the Zoom. I got on the Zoom call, and I think they thought that, you know, the nice lady in the cute dress was coming to be real pleasant with them, but I brought all of the 48235 Prairie St. Mary smoke. And I let them know that you are elected officials. You are here to do the work of the people. And if you don't get this legislation moving, you're gonna come outside one day and I'm gonna be sitting on the hood of your damn car. Okay. I'm not for play. I'm very much for real. And Rudy was like, I tried to tell y'all. This lady is not a joke. And then to further make it a little bit uncomfortable for the folks, I called up my good friend Darren Nichols, who's a columnist for the Free Press, and he wrote a story about how the legislation was stalled. USA Today picked up the story, and it went viral. So it had a little bit of pressure. Then Bridget, to shore everything up, she reached out to Senator Sylvia Santana from Detroit, another black woman, another sister. And Senator Santana's team helped rewrite some of the language in the legislation and take some of those pieces out that the GOP was weaponizing. And the legislation started going again. I was sitting in front of the Senate committee, and they were hearing testimony from Senator Santana and myself, and I could see out of the corner of my eye Rudy, and he said, you know, when you're done, come here, I gotta talk to you. So I stepped outside, and I found out that Representative Arbit had sandbagged the legislation because he wanted to get all of the credit for the legislation. Now, I know you think I'm lying, but I'm not. I found it unbelievable. I received an education that I did not expect to receive in how egos and the backbiting and infighting within the Democratic Party and within Lansing and politics works in Lansing. It was eye-opening. But we kept fighting, and we kept fighting. We kept making phone calls. We kept showing up. And in December of 2024, our legislation, House Bill 5400 and 5401, passed the Senate. On February 9th of this year, our legislation was signed by Big Gretch, Governor Whitmer. My daughter India, my husband Daryl, Bridget, and Ron, and Rudy, and myself were all there as Governor Whitmer signed our legislation, and our bill, the law goes into effect this month. One thing I know for sure, and two things I know for certain, if you want to get some shit done, call a black woman. Disruptors are needed. When black people fight for laws and fight for justice, we're not just fighting for us. The Voting Rights Act wasn't just for us. Civil rights weren't just for us. They're for everybody. And I'm so proud that I had a mother and father who taught me how to fight, not just for myself, for others. And I'm glad that I'm mirroring that for my daughter. At a time such as this, it is so important that we understand that we can make change. We understand that disruption is necessary. It's vital. And I'm glad that I was not afraid to be a disruptor. Thank you.
JeDonna Dingus.